Wow, you've made it. You've made it all the way through the semester. I hope you've had a chance to learn a lot about the processing industries. During this semester, we've looked at things like wastewater treatment, refineries, natural gas plants, looked at a bunch of chemical plants, got an introduction to what kind of activities you as a process technician might do at the plant. We opened up the semester with that introduction to what kind of processes, what kind of plants, what kind of industries would require having a process technician. Hopefully when you go back and look at those processing industries and look at the different projects that people had done, looking at what kind of industries we had here in the area, we have gas plants, we have oil field plants, we have electric generation, we have wastewater plants, we have the chemical plants up in Arc City. You got a chance to get a feel for what kinds of things would happen. Hopefully then after that we started talking about some of the chemistry and physics that you might encounter during those process plants. We kind of looked at some of those processing principles, things like temperature and pressure and chemical reactions, pretty much just at an introductory level. As you go through process tech, if you continue in process tech, what you'll find out is we're going to get more in depth to the various things that go forward. We also looked at some of those critical business skills. What's going to make you a good process technician? Big things are, we've talked about look, listen, and hear, looking and listening and observing and smelling, because you're really the eyes and the ears of the process engineers, the people that are out there with the equipment every day. So you're looking for those abnormal situations. You're looking for how those pieces are out there, which means as a team player, you're going to have to work in teams. You'll have to work in shift. And one of the lessons that we talked about looked at shift work. Some of the pros and cons of shift work. There's some advantages and there's some disadvantages. We talked about rotating shift. We talked about other parts of the shift. We looked at teamwork, written communication skills, being able to present, being able to do safety items, being able to talk about safety topics. Because working at a process plant, you're dependent on other people and other people are dependent upon you. Your actions affect the process, your actions affect your teammates, your actions may affect people 2 or 3 shifts down the road. So you have to be aware and be cognizant of those activities. We talked and did a lot about process drawings. We did process flow diagrams. We did piping and instrumentation diagrams. We looked at safety skills. We talked about safety data sheets. We talked about what kinds of things are hazards, the difference between a hazard and a risk. So we looked at a lot of different activities, but mostly we were just introducing those activities. And finally, at the second half of the semester, we introduced you to the different types of equipment. Pumps, valves, furnaces, heaters, vessels, storage tanks, all kinds of different pieces of equipment that you might find at a processing plant. Depending on what's being processed, depending on the activities, some of those things are going to change. And so you have to, again, look and listen and watch for those abnormalities. You have to feel for those vibrations. You have to look at things that are out of the ordinary. So one of the critical skills for a process technician is really being a good observer. Being a good observer of those situations around you, both from a safety and environmental perspective, as well as from that process industry perspective. So that's one of those critical type skills. We focused a lot on distillation. It's one of the few processes that we actually looked at in detail, and even then we didn't look at it in detail enough, because you're going to see distillation over and over and over again as you go through process tech. And part of that is because it's a common practice for doing separations. It's a common practice for a variety of purification techniques. We do it a lot, and we look at those pieces. So again, we looked at equipment, just got you introduced to that equipment, but you would end up having a different type of thing for being able to deal with that equipment. And finally, we gave you an introduction into systems. How do these pieces come together, and so that you're able to utilize them and pull these pieces together. So hopefully we kind of gave you those introductions. The key to this class really was, A, what is process technology? B, what kind of terminology are we going to use? What kind of things might you expect to find when you walk into a processing plant? And C, get you that introduction so that when you go on to your next classes, you have a good foundation for what's that instructor talking about? Why is that important? How as a process technician am I going to be impacted? How as a process technician am I going to impact others? What kind of monitoring things am I going to have to do? What kind of instrumentation am I going to have to see? So hopefully we got you that part of the aspect and got you going for and looking forward to seeing you in your other process tech classes. Thanks.